And it is time to continue the process. I'm your host, Ralph. Let's just hop right into it. Week 9 recap to start us off here in this episode. It was one of those weeks where the scoreboard didn't quite match the reads. Cash lineups didn't hit, but the process still sharp. We were on the right sides of a lot, and I mean a lot of the games last week. Just missed a few ceiling plays that would have flipped the day, essentially. Let's run through it. Bears at Bengals. Caleb Williams finally exploded. If you stacked him with a Dunze and Loveland, you printed, essentially. We called that pairing. We just didn't go heavy enough in cash. Manunga dropped 175 on the ground, and that was a real pivot point that we missed. But the game script, the Bears went on the road exactly how we drew it up, right? Falcons at Patriots, right game script again, low tempo, grindy football. We said London was a tournament dart. 3 touchdowns later, that call aged nicely. Henderson didn't deliver, but the overall shape of the game, spot on from our perspective. Chargers at Titans. Herbert cash game play hit clean. The surprise was Gatson at tight end popping off. McConkey gave us a little. Vidal was flat, but thematically nailed it. Chargers handle business. Titans stay stuck. Colts at Steelers. All the upset cold. Pittsburgh out-toughed them, exactly like we said. Metcalf didn't flash, but if you paired Caleb to Loveland earlier in the slate, you had a very real sweat going on outside of this one anyway. So Freiermuth stole a touchdown, which depleted Jonnu a bit, but the read was dead on again. 49ers at Giants, no surprises here. McCaffrey show. Giants made them earn it. Chalk held. Broncos at Texans. We said ugly defensive slugfest, and, that's exactly what it was. Stroud leaves the game. Texans lose by 3. Probably flip that if he finishes. But right tempo, wrong winner, but the story matched the read, essentially. Vikings at the Lions. Didn't have this one. J.J. McCarthy woke up the Vikings and cost us a solid Lions stack. Gibbs disappeared. Montgomery coughed up 2 fumbles. Game script broken every possible way for this pick, and we ate it. Panthers at the Packers. This one just flat out shocked me, y'all. Dowdle runs for 170 plus on what had been a top rush defense going into the week. That flipped the whole game on its head. Credit Carolina for showing up physical. Did not see this coming. Jaguars at the Raiders. Overtime thriller. We leaned Raiders. Jags stole it, but the DFS pieces worked out. Trey Tucker, cheap value. That guy's coming on as wide receiver 1, especially with Jacoby Myers being traded away now to Jacksonville. But Brock Bowers smash, all hit. We faded Jonty, and that was the right call there. That's the kind of micro edge that keeps you profitable in these tough weeks. But we had the Raiders, and it was an overtime win. They only lost by the Jaguars with the overtime win. Raiders only lost by a point, so we were close there. Saints at Rams, exactly as forecast. So Rams defense was mean. Kyron Williams was the closer. Saints offense still stuck in neutrals. No surprises, no regrets. Chiefs at the Bills. Nailed this one again, guys. We said Allen over Mahomes. Hunt touchdown live. Both hit. That's how you turn the film study into profit, right? Like, that's the whole point of the process is I'm going to do the extra work that you guys don't have the time to do. But some of this stuff is obvious. If you had the time, you would see it. You don't rely on me. That's what we're here for. Seahawks at Commanders. Expected ground control, got air raid instead. Like, I expected Seattle to have to pound the ball on the ground, but Washington just let them do whatever they wanted through the air. So Darnold threw 4 touchdowns. Sometimes game flow just flips. Nothing you can do but note it and move on. Cardinals at the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. No Kyler killed my prop, but Jacoby Brissett kept this team rolling. Arizona stuns Dallas on the road. Marvin Harrison Jr. looks every bit the truth. Cowboys, yeah, they're a mess, but we'll have to remember that. So overall, week 9 was about some near misses, the kind where the logic is right, but the outcomes just slip. We hit our reads: Steelers, Bills, Rams, Bears, all clean. We missed a few ceilings: Monungai, London, Dowdle, the ones that swing tournaments, basically those 3. But the board made sense. We saw it, we trusted it, and that's how you stay sharp. heading into November. All right, now that we got old news out of the way, on to new news. That means we're into week 10, and we're going to start off with a little bit of would you rather. We'll talk about which pick I would rather between these two guys. Throw the picks on the screen there and get it popping for you. All right, let's jump into would you rather week 10. Couple of tough calls this week. And yeah, we're starting with the Thursday nighter because so many people have asked about this on Fantasy Pro. So retroactively, we'll roll through this one. The first would you rather is Cortland Sutton versus Kyle Monangai. Even before kickoff, I'd have said Sutton. With Swift returning, Monangai slides right back into that secondary role. His snap share drops below 40% whenever Swift's active. So, meanwhile, Sutton had clear volume upside against the soft Vegas secondary. Denver's offense looked hot, and target equity is what I was looking for in this scenario. So, obviously, Sutton didn't do much, and so if Monangai can get in the game and breathe, he'll make more points. But we'll have to see. Maybe that pick holds up. But moving on next, would you rather play Deebo Samuel or Quinshon Judkins? Okay, so tough one here. Judkins' matchup screams volume, but Cleveland's offensive line ranks 32nd in run block grade. No space to breathe, so Deebo's got better game script by a bit, especially if Washington is trailing. He's more likely to see design touches and red zone looks. So verdict here has got to be Deebo narrowly. All right, next up, would you rather play DeAndre Swift or Chris Olave? Easy one for me. Swift. The Giants allow 2.2 yards per contact. 2.2 yards before contact per rush. That's a lot. That means you're getting 2 yards before you even see one of their guys. That is a lot, y'all. While the Saints passing game is pretty much unwatchable on the other side of that coin. So Rashid Shaheed got traded, and Shout is struggling. Like, that was the only guy he seemed to have any chemistry with. So I don't know. Like, Olave's upside is capped, basically. Swift's in a prime bounce back spot behind an elite offensive line. Let me get Swift right there. All right, would you rather play Kenneth Walker III this week or Jameson Williams? Walker's been frustrating. I know it. We have to talk about it. We got to have a come to Jesus moment about it here. That's what we'll do. Averaging 3.5 yards per carry and splitting time with Charbonnet. But volume still matters, everybody. Like, this is chess, not checkers. Volumes matter. So the Seahawks O-line is bottom 5 in run block win rate, which is not great. That hurts. But Williams' target share is volatile. Like, we just don't know week to week how much targets this guy is going to get. They've even admitted they got to do a better job of getting him involved than Detroit. So opportunity wins out. Reluctantly, I'll say Walker right here. Maybe this is the week he pops. All right, Travis Etienne versus Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs. I don't know. I like saying that. He's not Italian, but I like saying it like that. Romeo Doubs. Not even that's Italian. That's stereotypical. I don't know. I'll keep going. Etienne runs into a brick wall. Houston's front has allowed 100 rush yards since week 5 in total. Not a week. In total. We're going into week 10 now. So you do the math. Green Bay, on the other hand, they should throw plenty versus Philly's secondary. Dobbs' red zone usage, he's got team high 7 targets, gives them an edge. So I'm going to say Dobbs in this conundrum here between him and Etienne. Romeo Doubs. All right, next up, would you rather play Nico Collins or Breece Hall? Collins is a plus spot this week. Jacksonville corners, they can be beat. It's a decent defense, but their corners can be beat. But Hall owns the higher ceiling this week. He's got a 17% target share in all the goal line work. If the Jets win, it's because Hall carries them there. And spoiler alert, I got the Jets winning that game versus the Browns this week, so I'll take Hall. Tatara McMillan versus Rondé Gadsden II. McMillan's coming off of a breakout and faces a leaky, that's being nice. It was a leaky New Orleans secondary who was allowing 8.1 yards per target to perimeter receivers. Meanwhile, Gadsden's buried in a crowded Chargers rotation. We don't know week to week how many touches he's going to get. There's too many mouths to feed, so let's take McMillan here. All right, would you rather play DK Metcalf or Quinshon Judkins this week? Chargers run D is greater than their pass defense, quite simply. So Pittsburgh's tougher up front. Judkins still gets the ball. Volume trumps volatility, though, like we were talking about earlier. Metcalf's matchup is tricky versus the Chargers corners, who are giving up just 5.8 yards per target. So I'm going to roll the dice with Judkins. Would you rather play Jordan Addison versus Rondé Gatson this week? Addison is ascending again. Second on the team in air yards. And this Ravens secondary is beatable deep, basically. So Minnesota's offense is live this week, in my opinion. Verdict, I'm going to take Addison right here. All right, would you rather play Rondé Gatson or Kamani Vidal this week? So Vidal's running into the league's #1 run stuff rate defense. That's Pittsburgh at 17% of the time they stuff that run. Gatson at least has a path through volume. So I'm going to take Gatson in that scenario right there. Romeo Doubs. Romeo versus Woody Marks. Okay, well, Marks splits the Houston backfield and sees every red zone carry to Chubb, basically. So Dobbs' red zone work plus 30-plus routes per game gives him a higher floor. We got to take Dobbs right there easily. Would you rather play Tatara McMillan versus Kyle Monangai this week? McMillan, again, top target in an offense that's opening up, and Monangai's role's been chopped in half. Carolina's secondary is toast. The Saints' secondary is toast, I should say. So they aren't stopping anybody, basically. Verdict, McMillan. All right. That's our would you rather for this week. Now you guys know who I would rather in those conundrums. Those were the most sought after answers on fantasypros.com this week. But yeah, we went through it. So hopefully that gives you a better sense of who you'd rather play in certain conundrums. All right, before we reload, guys, quick shout out to something I'm genuinely excited about. DevHawk. It is new productivity. It's a new productivity cockpit for engineering teams built by our friends over at Fraction. Now, if you've ever led a dev team, you know how hard it is to keep a pulse on velocity. Who's shipping, who's stuck, where the blockers are. DevHawk takes all of that and turns it into live insight, commits, pull requests, story points, all in one place. But here's where it gets wild. DevHawk doesn't just track productivity, it nudges it. If it's a sprint stalling or a developer's metrics dip, DevHawk's AI agent drops a message straight into Slack, looping in the project lead, the developer, even the agent itself, to get things back on track. It's like having a silent project manager watching over every repo, keeping momentum alive. It's proactive, it's automated, and it's honestly the future of development management. If you want a real-time view of your team's performance, or you just want to see how an AI can keep your engineers moving, check it out at devhawk.ai. That's devhawk.ai. Get, ship, done. With that, we'll roll right along into a little bit of reload. And we got to start with the Thursday night game. What a schnorrer. We had the Denver Broncos and the Vegas Raiders, and 10-7 ball game. One thing we can take away from this is the Broncos played down to the level of competition. We've seen them do this many times this year. They had the shootout with the Giants, this close one with the Raiders. Enough empirical data for my eye to discern that this is a team that is going to be limited, because they'll rise to the occasion when they need to, but they'll fall against lesser teams. And so just something to take note of. But I mean, they win 10-7 and, pretty much a snoring game. But anyway, reload onto Sunday. Buffalo at Miami. Buffalo rolls in with the league's #3 offensive line and a defense that finally looks like they're on the get right mode. Josh Allen's rushing equity is the difference here, though, y'all. Miami's allowing pressure on 30% of the dropbacks and can't finish drives in the red zone. Ray Davis could start with James Cook doubtful. Cook did practice on Friday. Doesn't matter for cash games. If Cook plays, you can play him. If Davis plays, you can play him. But that's a real workload bump for Davis if he's the one. H-Han, great GPP dart. We had to say GPP because touchdown odds are rough. Like, the Dolphins just aren't producing in the red zone. But anyways, I'll say Buffalo wins it on discipline and trenches. Reload. Moving on to the Giants at the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams behind the top 2 O-line in pressure rate allowed. That's the story for this game right here. Swift's burst is back, and Loveland's red zone usage makes the triple stack seem pretty dangerous. Giants still give up 2.2 yards per contact per rush, so Chicago can stay balanced. I think Bears win here. Crowd goes home happy. Reload. All right, Berlin game. Atlanta Falcons at Indianapolis Colts. Early game here for us. Indy's number 1 offensive line meets a Falcons defense that dares you to run. That's fine. JT's built for that challenge. 1.6 yards before contact. Top 10 in success rate. He's the guy. London's the only Falcon I probably touch here. Bijan's price is too high for this matchup. Colts grind one out in Germany. Reload. Cleveland Browns at New York Jets. 2 ugly offenses, 1 slightly less ugly defense. Cleveland's line ranks dead last in both pressure rate allowed at 41% in yards and YBC 0.4. So like that's not playable football basically, right? Yards before carry. So that's like not playable football. Judkins is a dart throw, but the Jets front has been elite since week 7. So they'll wreck the pocket, and Garrett Wilson's enough to scrape out a win at home. I know they just traded away Quinnen Williams, but I'll give them, enough of a luxury getting Garrett Wilson back. I think it's some heroic field stuff at the end of the game here. Like we've seen it even happen so far this year, and so I don't know why it wouldn't happen in this game. But logically, you think Cleveland would go on the road and then win this one, but I think it's that weird fluky stuff that last minute whatever throw up that gets the Jets the win here, and it gets them their 2nd win of the year. Reload. Jacksonville Jaguars at Houston Texans. Quiet upset alert for this one. Houston's defense ranks top 3 in pressure rate. It hasn't allowed 100 yards rushing in a month. As we mentioned earlier, Jacksonville's line hasn't held up. Trevor Lawrence has been hit on 30% of dropbacks since week 6. Chubb's fine for seasonal, but no juice for DFS. Nico Collins and Jaden Higgins, tournament worthy only. Texans defense wins this one outright. Reload. New England Patriots at Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Tampa's rested off the bye, sitting top 10 in no blitz pressure. That's trouble for Drake May, but New England can sling it too. Both teams funnel to the air with bottom 5 rushing efficiency. Diggs is your cash game staple. Hunter Henry sneaky tight end pivot. Baker Mayfield at home with 2 weeks prep feels right. Reload. Baltimore at Minnesota. Baltimore Ravens at Minnesota Vikings. Points. Lamar's rushing share has climbed 18% since Henry joined the backfield. That combo is live and in effect this week. Vikings allow 1.3 yards before contact, so King Henry should find daylight. Jefferson and Addison will push back. Mason gets the cheap work with Jones sideline. Lamar runs wild. Ravens edge it. Reload. New Orleans Saints at Carolina Panthers. Carolina's offensive line is top 5 in every metric quietly. 1.6 yards before contact, 80% adjusted success rate last 2 weeks. Hubbard's live again. Rico Dowdle's live again, but you got to keep your eye on Hubbard. I'm thinking on a couple of weeks where he's coming off some huge games. It just, to me, feels like the perfect point against a weak team to pivot and give this guy a little bit of a blow. At this point, they have to start, whether they are or not, they got to start thinking like a playoff team and managing a team like that. And so if you can use what happens to be your secondary back now in Hubbard, which was your starter last year, then you should do that in a game that is soft up front and save the legs of a guy who's been working hard lately. But what the heck do I know, right? McMillan is solid. Leggett is your dart. New Orleans, nothing left over there. Schaub looks lost. And Olave stranded. Carolina's defense is playable for DFS purposes and dangerous at home. Reload. Arizona Cardinals at Seattle Seahawks. Could be a sneaky over right here, guys. Arizona's path is in the air. Brissett's quick release, 2.5 seconds average, neutralizes Seattle's edge rush, essentially. He's a vet that can get it out, y'all. So I'm expecting some football here. And McBride plus Marvin Harrison Jr. can punish coverage gaps. Seattle can't run, bottom 10 YBC. So, Darnold's play action game is heating up, though, is the other thing of that. JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba trending towards wide receiver 1 usage. I like that this week. I think that's cash game this week. Seahawks survive, Cardinals cover, reload. Detroit Lions at Washington Commanders. Washington's offense is melting. 39% pressure rate, 17% rush stuff rate. Lions defense can feast here. Gibbs over Monty by every metric. 5.6 yards per carry versus 3.9 and twice the explosive rate. Laporte is safe. Amon-Ra is steady. But, this one's about defense and clock control. Detroit rolls easily. I think that's why I'm invested in Montgomery over Gibbs. Although Gibbs could have a fantastic day, I think he could give way at the end of the day when they're taking some of the starters out, and Montgomery may get some more touches than him. Reload. LA Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. The Rams are the tougher team right now, y'all. They just are. You don't have to like me. Please don't at me. Top 10 O-line, balanced attack, top 10 defense in both passing and rushing. And Stafford's averaging 2.8 seconds to throw. Clean pockets, clean reads. Niners guards rank bottom 8 in pass block efficiency on the other side of the ball. That's not good, and that ain't fixing itself. Puka's reliable. Adams is your dart. Devontae Adams in tournaments. CMC does CMC things, but not a slate breaker here. I think the Rams can focus on stopping him and making the 49ers do something else to beat them, which I don't think they can be. I think the Rams still won on the road here. Kind of try to take control of that division. Reload. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Los Angeles Chargers. Sunday Night Football in effect here. Chargers are volatile but electric. Herbert's pressure rate is still 40%, but Pittsburgh's pass rush is cool to the middle of the pack. Cooling off from their hot start to the year. Herbert plus McConkey stacks make sense. Warren's burst, 4.8 yards per carry, keeps him viable on the other side of the ball for the Steelers as a contrarian dart. Chargers have more ways to win, and they'll show it. Reload. On to our final shot. Let's make it a good one. Philadelphia Eagles on the road at the Green Bay Packers. Monday Night Football. Green Bay looking to bounce back from that embarrassing loss at home to the Carolina Panthers. Green Bay line has cratered 1.3 yards before contact, 35% pressure rate, not expecting much there. That's bad news against Philly's front. Barkley's the key piece if active here. Bigsby's the plug if he isn't. Hurts remains matchup proof. Packers flash early, but the Eagles defense and tush push probably finish this game out for them. And that is your reload section for week 10. Hopefully my observations help you decide who you may play in certain scenarios this week. And it's that time of the show where we want to give a special shout out to the 8U AAU Downey Razorbacks. They had a bye week last week, and this week they are facing the West Coast Warriors in the second round of the playoffs. The Razorbacks have retooled things a bit, and I feel these guys are ready to roll. So good luck to you guys. Play hard, have fun. Let's go get a dub and try to get the rematch with Lace. Razorbacks forever. Okay, on to DFS week 10 here. Let's get into where the chalk belongs, where the leverage lives, and which plays you can trust in cash versus GPPs this week. All right? So, quarterbacks. Let's go with Josh Allen. We used him last week in cash. I think this is a tournament play again this week. For some reason, I wrote it up as cash, but I'm pretty sure my notes said tournament. It sure did. Miami's allowing pressure on 30% of dropbacks, and Allen's legs make him matchup proof. You can stack him cheap with Ray Davis if he plays, or just with Cook if he doesn't, and Kincaid, and you're still capturing nearly every Buffalo touchdown if you do that with the three of them, or you can do some combination of it if you want. But there's him, and then Lamar Jackson. This is my cash game play of the week. This guy's cash game play of the week, I should say, at $6,800. Minnesota's giving up 4.6 yards per catch and bottom 10 in EPA per rush allowed. Lamar's rushing share has quietly spiked since Derrick Henry has arrived, like we talked about earlier. So this combo is the perfect floor ceiling stack. the very minimum, we got to stack the two of them. Could probably throw in Andrews at tight end too. Matt Stafford, $6,500 for tournament. Facing a 49ers front that blitzes heavy but gives up 7.6 yards per attempt when it doesn't hit home, right? So Puka's healthy, game total solid. This one screams leverage. I'm also interested in Baker Mayfield, as you can see this week, $6,200 for tournaments. 2 weeks to prep for New England. He's been pushing the ball downfield more, 8.9 ADOT the last two starts, average depth of target, if you will. And with Auden or Diggs, excuse me. So Tez Johnson, I should say. But on the other side, I'm bringing it back with Diggs. Love Diggs this week. Definitely a cash game plays. Diggs, I think this is a low on pivot stack here if you want to pair those guys up in some combination, but key in on this game for sure. Caleb Williams, $6,100 cash play. Giants defense giving up. Was that a cash play? That was not a cash play this week. I don't know why, for some reason, the only cash plays were at quarterback were Jackson and Stafford. The rest of these, I said Stafford tournament. It was cash play. Sorry about that. But Caleb Williams, Giants defense giving up the third most rushing yards to QB. So Bears O-line, quietly top 10 in pass block win rate. He's game script proof this week, I feel like. It's just all about the ceiling. It's not about the floor. So that's a great tournament play for us. All right, Jacoby Brissett. $4,600. We can take a stab on that in tournaments. Dirt cheap salary saver. He's not sexy, but volume's there versus Seattle. Use if you're stacking the 4 p.m. slate, basically, right? Or if you want that late hammer, basically, for the main slate. All right, on the running backs, Ray Davis, $4,500 cash. If Cook is out, this is the lock button play this week. But Cook may play, right? And so I would just play Cook at $7,500 if he does play. But Miami's allowing 1.2 yards before contact per carry. So, whoever gets the ball is going to flirt with 20 touches, right, at their price. And so I would still even take Cook at that price, at that higher price. But if he can't go and Davis can, you can't avoid that. Okay, Derrick Henry, $6,400. Cash game play this week, I think. Minnesota's interior has been soft all year. Henry's red zone touch rate with Baltimore is at 52%. So a Lamar Henry stack is viable in the same lineup, dude. You got hard to avoid that this week, honestly. All right, tournaments, Achane 7,400, still elite burst metrics, 14% explosive run rate. But Miami's red zone success is dead last. Big player bust is what it's going to be. But he can sort of, return value on even just one run, right? He's electric. Jonathan Taylor, $6,200 cash game play. Atlanta's defense ranked 24th in rush EPA allowed. Indy's O-line is number one in adjusted line yards. JT's your steady Eddie, ready core play of the week. DeAndre Swift, $5,800. I like this play too. Giants allowing they're allowing 2.2 YBC and 27 running back receptions over the last 3 games. So Smith's workload is quietly elite again. On top of that, we like him this week coming back off the injury. All right, Chuba Hubbard, $5,300 for tournaments. New Orleans ranks bottom 10 versus gap schemes. Carolina's number 1 in rush success rate. Great leverage pivot if for some reason they're up and Dowdle doesn't get the reps, right? Jordan Mason in the tournament, 4,200 conditional play. If Aaron Jones sits, Mason's the plug. Ravens give up the 8th most running back receptions. Jones plays. I don't think I want to split the work. All right, wide receivers, Puka seems like a cash play. Target hog, 11 plus targets in 5 of 8 games. San Francisco secondary's allowed 15 passing touchdowns. Plug and play with Stafford. Jackson Smith and Jigba, $6,400 cash game play. Slot rate up. Routes per dropback over 85%. In Arizona slot coverage, bottom 5 in the league. We got to cue this up this week. Justin Jefferson, cash game play, $7,900. I might play it in tournament, though. But anyways, healthy, back to elite route share, and the Ravens secondary is allowing 8.7 yards per target to wide receiver ones. And so he's a bring back play for me, definitely in any Baltimore stacks, but standalone tournament, you got that too. No problem. Let's see. Nico Collins, tournament play, $6,700, 25% target share. Hard to avoid that. And Jacksonville corners have given up a 112 passer rating on intermediate throws. That's not great if you didn't know. High ceiling stack with Mills is what you can do with Collins. And then Roma Dunze, $6,100 for tournaments. Elite athletic profile, seeing more end zone looks, maybe a sneaky pivot off Puka lineups. And then Tataro McMillan, $5,700. Cash game play, number one option, 34% team target share. And the Saints secondary has allowed 5 wide receiver 1 touchdowns in 3 weeks. Very hard to not look at him as a cash game play this week. And then Addison, $5,400 tournament play. Air yards trending up again with Justin Jefferson drawing doubles. So perfect Lamar bring back in that game. Wandale Robinson for tournaments, $5,300. Volume, floor solid, and expected shootout with Chicago. Makes the Caleb Swift Loveland stack complete if you want to do that. Malik Washington, $4,200 in tournaments this week. Emerging Miami deep threat, worth the dart in larger builds. Just somebody we need to keep our eye on. All right, the tight ends McBride for cash. Like, yeah, this dude is at the top of the food chain for me this week for cash games for McBride. It's $6K, 24% target share over the last 3 weeks. Seattle's dead last versus tight ends. Set it and forget it. Like I told you about Brissett earlier, you pair him with McBride here, okay? Dalton Kincaid, Miami's allowed 6 tight end touchdowns, stack with Allen and cash builds. Like you could do that, right? So if you wanted to go that route, you could, but tournaments, it makes sense to go Kincaid, Allen, and then the running back, whether it's Cook or Davis. If it was Davis, that'd be a perfect salary saver. Colston Loveland, $4,100. Wilson's favorite chain mover. Great tight end pivot if you fade Kincaid. Cade Otton, $3,700 from Tampa Bay in tournaments. Cheap Mayfield stack option with sneaky red zone usage. We like that. And then Hunter Henry is an option for tournaments, $3,500. Tampa's funnel D forces interior look, salary saving play and shootouts basically. And onto the defense. So Panthers, $3,500 cash game play. Saints rank 31st in points per drive and just lost another wide receiver. So when Shaheed, so I don't know what you would expect from them. So Panthers look like a good play on defense for leverage. Lions, $3,400 cash game play. Mariota's turnover worthy play rate is 6.1%. That's the play. Like that's pretty high. Texans, $3,100. Love that play. Trevor Lawrence under pressure on 34% of drop packs. So that's like giving us sack upside. Lions and Texans are my cash game plays this week. Panthers, sure. You don't need me to tell you that looks good, but I think it's more of a tournament thing, maybe. Jets, $2,800. Definitely tournament play. Browns O-line literally dead last in protection metrics. Best leverage D on the slate. As I said, I think the Jets can win that game. If they do, their defense will play decently. So some core builds of the week that you might consider. Josh Allen, Ray Davis, Kincaid captures all Buffalo scoring equity. Caleb Williams, Swift, and Loveland with the Wandale bring back. Clean game stack with rushing and tight end floors. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Jefferson bring back. Correlation and ceilings baked into that play there. Stafford and Puka plus the Lions D. Leverage on the late throws. Hubbard and Panthers defense. Salary saver correlation play. Those are some nice things to think about this week. So final thought, cash game plays are about the floor. Allen, Lamar, Puka, McBride. Tournaments, that's where you get weird, right? Stafford double stacks. Hubbard pivots and late game correlation builds. But that is what I'm looking at for DFS for this week. And hopefully that helps you guys fill in any gaps where you were not sure who you might play. Well, y'all, if we have just talked about the DFS plays this week, then that could only mean that it's time to get this baby on board, get this baby home. Let's wrap things up. Let's do it with a housekeeping section for week 10. Let's tidy up everything and talk about a few leans I like, backed by what the metrics are telling us. So, couple of things for me this week. Here's what it looks like bet-wise for me, what I want to do this week. Houston to win. I'm rolling with the Texans outright this week. Jacksonville's offensive line has been giving up pressure on 36% of dropbacks. That's bottom 5 in the league, if you didn't know. While Houston's front ranks top 10 in pressure rate and success rate versus the run. Trevor Lawrence has looked uncomfortable, even in clean pockets lately. And Houston's defense has been opportunistic lately. Defense wins it at home. So give me Houston outright in that one. Next up, Miami plus 7.5 versus Buffalo. I'm going to take that, you guys. This is more about Miami's defense than the offense. They're top 10 in red zone defense, and they're allowing just 1.2 yards before contact per carry, which means that they can slow down that Bills run game. I don't think that they can win this football game, but I don't think they roll over either. Expect them to keep it close with good defensive execution. Bills win, Dolphins cover. Detroit at Washington. Detroit Lions at Washington Commanders. I'm taking the under, 49.5. Washington's offense has completely regressed under Mariota. Pressure rate allows gone up over 49%, and Detroit's defense is top 5 in opponent EPA per drive. So the Lions, meanwhile, they can control the game on the ground with Gibbs and Montgomery against a weak Commanders front. Simple as that. Everything here screams clock control. I'm going to take the under. Fewer possessions, lower tempo, clear win. Next up, my next bet is Achane, anytime touchdown this week. This one's about explosion rate. Even with limited red zone work, Achane still leads all running backs with 14% explosive run rate. And Buffalo's front seven is giving up chunk plays even when they're giving up chunk plays when they miss fits, basically. So he doesn't need 20 carries. Just one crease could help him cash this, right? Another Achane play this week is over 40 yards rushing. Same story. This is not volume dependent. Buffalo's defense ranks bottom third in yards allowed after contact, and Miami still schematically creates space with motion. Simple as that. Achane's average on design runs is 6.9 yards per carry. If he's active and gets even 8 carries, he can clear this number comfortably. Next up, Derrick Henry, King Henry, anytime touchdown. The Vikings have allowed 8 rushing touchdowns, like I said earlier, in their last 4 games, and are giving up 4.6 yards per carry right now inside the 5-yard line. So Baltimore has been feeding Henry on over 50% of their goal line plays. That's just not a lean. That's a volume-based projection right there. So I'm going to ride that one. And those are the bets that I'm looking at currently for week 10. And we'll try to wrap it up here with the DFS tip of the week. And I'll implore you guys with this time to stack smarter. So this season, we've seen a big shift in tournament winning builds. Fewer QB wide receiver stacks taking it down, more QB running back tight end stacks. Why, would you ask? Teams with dual threat quarterbacks and condensed red zone usage are creating self-contained scoring environments. You're basically capturing all the touchdowns from one offense. Let's look at this week's examples of this. Caleb Williams, Swift, and Loveland, high floor from the Bears O-line and rushing equity makes that a viable stack. We also have Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Mark Andrews this week for the Ravens. The Ravens' touchdowns are flowing through those 3, and it's a comfortable scoring environment, so why not stack? Jacoby Brissett, Emil Demercado, and then McBride. So from Arizona, this is a cheap contrarian stack with correlated usage. I don't think many people will be on this because they're looking at Seattle's this vaunted defense, especially after whooping the Commanders last week. But they can be had in certain scenarios, and this is the way. It's about correlation and leverage. If that offense hits, you're not sharing it with half the field, basically. So for tournaments this week, think QB, running back, tight end. Capture the touchdowns, fade the field. That's the housekeeping for this week, guys. Now, hopefully, your house is in order. And that's our show for this week. I appreciate you guys giving me the listen. You can catch us on the website, tigerbombsae.com. You can catch me on Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, however. But more importantly, you guys now have the ammo to go out there, take down this week, get yourselves a big W in seasonal and in DFS. And as usual, we'll huddle up right back here next week and talk about how we did, because you already know we're going to continue to learn, scout, win, and repeat. Peace.
My daddy killed this beat.